Hello, you awesome math scholars out there, and welcome back to another edition of Math is My Jam. Math is my jam, guys, and today we're going to work on adding and subtracting fractions. So pay attention and let's jam on into it. So today we're going to be adding 1/3 and 3/5. And if you haven't already, guys, make sure you've watched our video on finding your least common denominator. That's going to be the first step in being able to solve this problem. Okay, so my least common denominator here is going to be 15. So I'm going to go ahead and find equivalent fractions. So also make sure you've watched the video on finding equivalent fractions. So I'm going to find two new equivalent fractions. When you're adding fractions, you are not going to be able to add them unless you have the same denominator for both fractions. So right now, I'm going to convert this 1/3 into something with a denominator of 15, and I'm also going to do the same for 3/5. Okay, so this part is pretty simple, and again, you have to know how to find your least common denominator. When I do 1/3, I'm going to multiply 1/3 times some fraction equals some fraction with the denominator of 15. So in order to go from 3 to 15, I had to multiply 3 times 5. So whatever I do to the bottom, I'm going to also do the same thing to the top. My new equivalent fraction for 1/3 is going to be 5/15. And I'll go ahead and put a box around that, and then I'll move on to 3/5. When I multiply across, I know that 5 times 3 equals 15, so I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 3. Now I have 5 times 3 equals 15, and I also have 3 times 3 as on my numerator, and that equals 9. What I end up with, guys, is 5/15 plus 9/15. Now it's going to be easy for me to go ahead and add this. Once I have two fractions with the same denominator, I can just go ahead and add my numerators, and my denominator will always stay the same. My answer is 14/15. For my new fraction, guys, I have 3/4 minus 2/5. Same as the last problem, I need to find two new equivalent fractions before I can go ahead and subtract. I must have the same denominator. I know that my least common denominator here is going to be 20. So now what I have is 3/4 times some fraction equals some fraction with the denominator of 20. And I have 2/5 times some fraction equals some fraction with the denominator of 20. Both of my new fractions are going to have a denominator of 20. 4 times 5 equals 20. So if I multiply the bottom number by 5, I'm going to also multiply my numerator, which is my top number, by 5 as well. My new equivalent fraction here is going to be 15/28. On the other side, I have 2/5 times some fraction equals some fraction with the denominator of 20. 5 times something equals 20. Well, we know that 5 times 4 equals 20. And if I multiply the bottom by 4, I also have to multiply the top by 4. My two new equivalent fractions are 15/28 and 8/28. Now that we have the same denominator, I can go ahead and go across and subtract. 15 minus 8 equals 7, and my denominator stays the same. Therefore, my answer now is 7/20. And for our final problem, we're going to do 3/9 minus 1/2. Go ahead and pause the video, find your common denominator, and see if you can work this one out, and see if we get the same answer. Did you see that 18 was your least common denominator? Good. If you found that 18 was your least common denominator, now you just go ahead and set it up just like I have it here. And we're going to say 3/9 times some fraction equals some fraction with the denominator of 18. We know that 9 times 2 is going to give us 18. So 3 times 2 is going to give us 6. My new equivalent fraction here is 6/18. Let's move over to the other side here. We have 1/2 times some fraction equals some fraction with the denominator of 18. And so 2 times what equals 18? We know 2 times 9 equals 18. If I multiply the denominator by 9, I also have to multiply my numerator by 9. 1 times 9 equals 9. My two new equivalent fractions are 6/18 and 9/18. Now, I can subtract straight across. I have 6/18 minus 9/18. Uh-oh. Some of you may think, well, I can't do this problem because 6 is smaller than 9. But as you know, if you've already gotten into positive and negative integers, 6 minus 9 is going to give you -3. And so for this answer, you're going to get -3 over 18 or -3/18. Okay, and I made sure I put my negative sign in red so you guys could remember. But when you have a smaller number and you subtract a larger number, that's going to give you a negative. Alright guys, so just make sure you subscribe and you hit the like button. This is Math is My Jam. I hope that this makes more sense for you guys now. And continue coming back to the station so you guys can get the new videos as they are updated.